Good afternoon and welcome to the ePermit seminar, How the Corporate Manslaughter Act Puts You at Risk. The Corporate Manslaughter Act of 2007 had new sentencing guidelines introduced by the government in February last year. The focus of attention of these new guidelines were to look at the seriousness of the incident, including the possible failures by employers to respond to near misses or to take action, advice based on information from employees, whether the offence demonstrated a lack of adherence to recognised standards, inadequate training, supervision or reporting, if the incident was representative of fundamental systematic failings, whether there was a death or a serious personal injury, and if there was a high risk of future deaths because of inaction of the company in remedying the situation. Fines have been increasing in frequency since these revisions were introduced. In 2014, no fines were made of more than £1 million. In 2015, 3 fines of more than £1 million were made. But in 2016, after the revisions were introduced, 19 fines of more than £1 million were set. In that same year, there were 660 cases prosecuted, and 95% of these resulted in conviction. And conviction did not just mean a fine, it also, for some people, meant jail sentences. Now, much of this increase is due to sentencing factors that now include the evidence of cost-cutting at the expense of health and safety, poor health and safety records, and worst of all, falsification of documents and licences. The fines are categorised. Category A fines are for incidents with a high level of harm and culpability. Category B are for incidents with a lower level of culpability. But the fines imposed can be high. For Category A fines, they can be up to £7.5 million for companies with a turnover between £10 and £50 million. And for companies with a turnover between £2 and £10 million, the fines can be up to £2.8 million. This shows that this is a significant amount or significant proportion of the company's turnover, and we're talking turnover here, not profit. So any fine of such a nature can have a significant impact on the performance of the business, the reputation of the business, and what it means to shareholders in that business. The fines of course can be unlimited if the courts are not satisfied with any actions that were taken by the company. There are 4 key root causes of non-compliance. The most important thing is trusting to luck is not a strategy, or not a sensible strategy for a business. The 4 root causes are having the right people with the right training, working in the right place with the right risk assessments and method statements at the right time. Only one of these 13 combinations can ensure compliance. Now, nobody wants an incident, but everyone is under pressure to deliver to expectations. However, checking on things can take longer sometimes than the job itself. All of the information is there, it's just not in one place. Training records are located on one system. Risk assessments and method statements are often paper-based in a drawer. The actual paper permits are distributed around the organisation for signature, and aiming to get them back in the right place at the right time before the job starts is sometimes difficult. With success, or a lack of incidents over a number of time, is that luck? There comes complacency. With complacency comes an increased chance of risk-taking, and too many risks will increase the chance of an incident and then a fine for the business. Permits to work are there to ensure compliance. So a permit to work should ensure firstly that the right people with the right training are the people that turn up on the job specified on the permit. Are they properly trained, properly qualified and competent to do that job that is specified on that permit? Are the people working in the right location on the right piece of equipment, again, as specified on the permit? Are the people working against approved risk assessments and method statements in order to safely do the job that's specified on that permit? And finally, have the people turned up on a job have they turned up at the agreed time and at the time specified on the permit? Very often, organisations will find contractors turn up unannounced because they happen to be in the area 2 or 3 days earlier and want to do the job. What you don't want to do is make decisions if things are wrong. So if the answer to any of these is no, then you should stop. But often there is pressure to ensure the job gets done, and sometimes risks are taken. So how can all this information be checked and counter-checked, yet be done quickly and reliably? Obviously, you have to have the correct management process in place for permit requesting, approval, issue and closure processes. These processes are already in place for the paper systems, but there are too many cracks that things can fall through. You need to have the conviction to say no when you are sure not everything is in place. If it's not there, you should not continue with the job. What you can do is to use electronic systems to control your management process in your way, according to your rules. So e-permits provides this level of control. If you have a level of control, you have the right level of confidence, and if you have the control and the confidence, you are in that 1 in 13 slot, and that will give you compliance. What we'll do now is we'll take a look at how e-permits can achieve these 4 key factors. The first factor that we want to look at is the factor which considers people and training. Within e-permits, we manage people and companies. Company administration is looking at things such as company insurances, whether companies have, for example, asbestos qualification and so asbestos certification and so on. In the user side, this is where we're looking at people. So these are lists of people that are going to come on site to do a job for a particular contractor. If we look at any individual, there's a certain amount of data that is provided within the system by the contractor, and that includes the key things such as the name. It identifies if the person was born after, in this instance, the 8th of the 3rd, which says they're over 18 years old. More importantly, we look at things such as the competencies. We've got a whole range of different levels of competencies. So are people trained in confined spaces? Are they trained in hot works? Are they a qualified electrician? And if a box is ticked as yes, there's the ability to upload the relevant certificate for that qualification into e-permits. E-permits often also looks at inductions. So here are the 6 sites that this company, this contractor is allowed to work on for a client. And this gentleman has only been inducted on 2 of those sites. And again, induction certificates, if they're available, can be uploaded into the system. There are other areas such as working at height, high voltage, and asbestos. And if we look quickly at asbestos, it looks at, is the individual qualified in all of the key areas to enable work to be done on asbestos. So that's where we're looking at the right people and have they got the right training. So that information is logged and stored within e-permits. We also want to look at, for example, RAMs. So if I'm coming to do a job for you, I need to submit to you the specific RAMs for a specific job before I come and do that job. So if I'm going to come and do some work for you in a place called data centers and offices, I want to be able to submit my RAMs to you. So these RAMs are coming from any particular contractor. So let's pick one contractor, a specialist contractor. So here are all the RAMs that have been approved, and here are ones that are still awaiting approval. If I'm going to do a new job, I, as the contractor from specialist contractor, will generate a new title for RAMs. And I can give it a specific reference number. Which site is this pertaining to? It's pertaining to data centers and offices. Who is the contractor? It's my own company, specialist contractor. And who's going to assess the RAMs? Am I going to assess these RAMs myself, or by the client. In this instance, I'll show you it's the client that's going to assess the RAMs. So what service am I working on? AC heating. I'm going to be doing some repairing. Actually, we'll say installing. I'm also going to be doing work on the AC heating. I'm going to be doing inspecting. And now I can actually upload the PDF documents for this. And I can upload the other one from my system. And I'm now going to submit my RAMs to this company, FM company, to assess. They've now been submitted. And here are the two RAMs and the two documents. Having now submitted these are the people within the FM company who are required to approve these, one of these three. What will happen when I've submitted these, there will be an email that's sent to each of these individuals for them to inspect and approve these RAMs. Once they're approved, they will then be in the system and available for me, the contractor, to use when I submit a permit request. So that's shown how we manage the people, the right people with the right training, and now with the right RAMs. What we want to look at now is being in there at the right place at the right time. And this is managed in ePermits through the process by which a contractor creates a permit request. So I'm going to come in to do data centers and offices. I'm coming in to work for the FM company. And I now have a 6-step process by which I need to create a permit request. If I have a works order number, I can put this into the system as well. So this is specialist contractor. Who am I going to send as a competent person? I'm sending someone called Steve Chandler, and I'm going to put a guy called Richard De Silva on the job with him as well. I'm going to start the work on Monday the 13th. We'll start at 10. We'll finish on the same day, and we'll finish at 16:30. Let's do the next step. Now we're going to define what it is that we're going to do, where it's going to be done, and what type of RAMs we're going to use on these things. So I'm going to do work on the AC heating. I'm going to be doing some installing, and I'm going to work in the roof upper level. Now ePermits actually understands the place through an internal knowledge map, if you like, of what services are located in what places. ePermits looks at 4 levels. It looks at the building itself, which we call the site. The next level is what we call a zone, which is technically the, if you like, the floors within the building, but it can also mean the outside fabric. It could mean the gardens. It can mean car parks. It could be the roof, whatever. And then within these locations, you have the services, and the services are the air conditioning. So in this instance, the air conditioning heating exists only in 3 levels or 3 zones: level 1, the roof upper level, or the roof level within for this particular building. If I pick the roof upper level and I describe what I'm going to do, why is the work going to be done? It's a new item of plant required, and I'm going to be doing some cutting and grinding. Sorry, I'm going to do some welding and brazing, and I'm working in a confined space, or I'm working above plant. I do the next step. First thing that's identified is a couple of errors. I don't have a submit button. As a contractor, I'm not able to submit this request to the FM company because the errors have not been cleared. And these errors are, these red ones, you must have at least 2 persons trained in hotworks, and you must have all of your team trained in working at height. So therefore, if I go back, what I actually know is that this gentleman, Richard De Silva, has got no training at all. So I'll put a chap called Frederick in, because we saw he has got the right training in this, go to the next step, and now I can look at selecting the RAMs. Let's say I'm doing repairing. And I'm going to do that welding. Go to the next step, and now I have no areas in red, and I now have a submit button. So this is the team. The team are properly trained, properly qualified to do the work. The work is going to be done on this particular date, and the location is going to be in the roof upper level within the building. So therefore ePermits has now been in a position where I can now, as a contractor, submit that request. The system has checked that the people are the right people with the right training, that we're actually doing the work in the right location at the right time. So I can submit that request. This asks now, when am I going to be doing the working at height? I should be doing that for the whole period. When am I going to do the hot works? The hot works is going to be done on that particular date, but it's only going to be for an hour between 12:30 and 1:30. So I can now submit that request. And what happens now is that request has now gone from me, the contractor, and it will now appear in the inbox of one of the potential approvers within the organisation. So just to show you that, I will just log in as a potential approver. You may have heard the sound there. That's me actually getting the email as an approver, but it's waiting in my inbox. So here I have my requests awaiting approval, and at the bottom of the list, these are the ones that I've just submitted for the 13th. There is an access permit, a work at height permit, and a hot works permit request. So the job that specialist contractors are coming in to do has generated 3 types of permits: an access permit, a work at height permit, and a hot works permit. If I'm able to approve them, I can now look at and review these. The most important thing it shows me is, have I got any clashes happening at that time? What we don't want to do is we don't want to be doing 2 jobs in the same place at the same time if they actually conflict. So we look at if there's a location clash, things happening in the same place at the same time, a service clash, things happening on the same piece of kit at the same time, or a dependent service clash, working on 2 pieces of equipment that are actually dependent on each other. So for example, I may need the water supply on to be doing the work on the air conditioning heating, but another job that's taking place somewhere else in the building is working on the water supply and therefore turning it off. These will all be flagged up. Here we can see the details, so I'm now to review who submitted this and the contact number, what the works order number is, who the contractor is, who the 2 people that are coming through. I don't have to worry about whether or not these people are compliant because the system has already checked it for me. So in essence, that's the key parts of the system. When the contractor makes a request, it checks those 4 key elements. Are the people coming along with the right training the right people? Is the work taking place in the right place at the right time? And has it got all the right RAMs in place to do that work? If any of those elements are missing, a permit request cannot be submitted. And therefore, when you get to review a permit request, you're looking at other things, such as clashes, as to whether or not that job should go ahead at that time. You don't have to worry about those key things. That 1 in 13 chance is already taken care of within the system. As an approver, I also have the ability to instigate any additional isolations that I may need, and these are the different safety precautions that can be added to the system. And these are your safety precautions that you want to appear on a permit. So that's how ePermits basically covers off all of those things that you need to look at with regard to compliance and being sure that a system is going to be correct. Therefore, hopefully, you've been able to see how the key things in the Corporate Manslaughter Act do put you at risk, but how a system like e-permits can address each of those factors and give you the confidence and therefore the level of compliance by making sure it manages all of those things for you without you having to worry about them. I hope you've enjoyed the presentation. My contact details are on the screen. If anybody has any questions or would like some further information on e-permits, please do contact me on these details. You can also see more about the Corporate Manslaughter Act at our website at banyardsolutions.co.uk/insights. Thank you very much indeed for your time.